worship of the god Zeus. So it's such a distortion and just incredible fall and pressure that was placed upon those faithful Jews in Jerusalem. This is an interesting thing because we hear it really briefly described that there were Jews who refused to eat the food that was prohibited from them. In fact, it says, gosh, things get really bad. In verse 58 of chapter 1, it says this, that, the decree of the king condemned them to death. It says, they kept using violence against Israel, against those they found month after month in the cities. And it goes on, it says, according to this decree, they put to death women who had their children circumcised and their families and those who circumcised them, and they hung their infants from their mothers' necks. Imagine, again, this is Antiochus Epiphanes. And this is the last 3 verses of chapter 1, which is so powerful and necessary for us. But many in Israel stood firm and were resolved in their hearts not to eat unclean food. They chose to die rather than to be defiled by food or to profane the holy covenant, and they did die. This is just, man. We're going to hear about this. We're going to hear some actual stories in 2 Maccabees where they unpack what was the incredible courage, incredible faithfulness. What did that really look like during this time of persecution? They chose to die rather than to be defiled by food or profane the holy covenant, and they did. Remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, where they say, Lord, you, O king, you can throw us into the fiery furnace, and God can save us. Yet even if he will not, know that, O king, we will never bow down before you. And then he saved them. We have Esther. Mordecai says to Esther, he says that, yeah, you could not stand up for the Lord, but God will still deliver the people of Israel, while you won't be part of that. She does stand up, and God spares her life. And here are these people, these Jewish people in Jerusalem. They chose to die rather than to be defiled by food or to profane the holy covenant, and they did die. Which is just, we're going to hear these stories in 2 Maccabees, the stories of courage and incredible faithfulness. But for today, we just got the groundwork here for what's going to happen in rebellion. The rebellion is going to happen very soon against the Greek occupation of Jerusalem. Now, going on to the book of Sirach. Oh my gosh, you guys, you're going to love the book of Sirach. I love it so much. It's incredible. One of the things we get in Sirach is this is the same time, roughly at the same time, maybe a little bit after the Maccabean revolt, is this book, this book of wisdom, right? The book of, well, it's not book of wisdom, that's coming up later, but this book full of wisdom. It's all about wisdom, and it's all about the fear of the Lord. Now, think about the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This is one of those things that the fear of the Lord is wisdom's full measure. And it goes on to say, the fear of the Lord is the crown of wisdom. And this is something, the fear of the Lord is the root of wisdom. And there's something so powerful about this. We just realize, what is the fear of the Lord? As we know, it's not being scared of God. It's not shrinking back because we think that God is a tyrant or because God is a villain or because God is so powerful and he's going to use his power to dominate us or to rule us. He's not the tyrant, right? He's not soft or hard totalitarianism. He's a good God, but he's still God. So the fear of the Lord, ultimately, at the very most basic way you can say it, is the fear of the Lord is taking God seriously. That's the most simple way, the simplest way I can possibly put it into words. If you want to say, what is the fear of the Lord in its most basic? And again, there's better ways to say it, but at its most basic, the fear of the Lord is taking God seriously as God himself, if that makes any sense. Now, how do we do that? I love this because in the first chapter, we say, okay, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So then how do you get wisdom? And in verse 26 of chapter 1, it says, if you desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord will supply it for you. If you desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord will supply it for you. How much, how foolish do we become when we don't keep God's commandments? In fact, it goes on to say, verse 28, do not disobey the fear of the Lord. Do not approach him with a divided mind. Oftentimes, that's what we do. We approach God with a divided mind. I want to do your will, but I don't really want to do your will. I want to follow you. I want to obey your commandments. I don't really want to obey your commandments. And that is a recipe for foolishness. But you can. I mean, with God's grace, we can continue to walk in faithfulness. Now, I just want to highlight 2 more things just because one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible, one of my favorite verses is Sirach chapter 2, verse 1. And the translation we read today was, my son, if you come forward to serve the Lord, remain in justice and in fear and prepare yourself for temptation. And so good. He says, wait, God's patience, cling to him and do not depart, that you may be wise in all your ways. Accept whatever is brought upon you and endure it in sorrow. In changes that humble you, be patient. For gold and silver are tested in the fire, an acceptable man in the furnace of humiliation. Trust in God, and he will help you. This is one of my favorite translations, but one of my favorite lines, But my favorite translation is a different translation. And the different translations come from the New American Bible. It's the translation that we read at Mass. Now, the Revised Standard Version, the one we have been reading for the last 282 days, is phenomenal. It's a great translation. The New American Bible is also a very good translation. But here's what the New American Bible translates. Sirach chapter 2, verse 1 and following. It says, "My son, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for trials. Be sincere of heart and steadfast, undisturbed in time of adversity. Cling to him, forsake him not, thus will your future be great. Accept whatever befalls you. In crushing misfortune, be patient. For in fire gold is tested, in worthy men in the crucible of humiliation. Trust in God, and he will help you. Make straight your ways, and hope in him." That's the New American Bible translation, and they're both great translations. I love that second one of Sirach chapter 2, verse 1. It is just powerful. Last little note, I know, because we're getting there today. In chapter 3, we have duties towards parents and others. There is something so powerful about being reminded of the duty we owe to honoring our parents. The one who honors his father is honored, and the one who honors their mother is honored. The one who dishonors their father is dishonored. The one who dishonors their mom is dishonored. And there's something so powerful about hearing it again and again all throughout chapter 3. This recognition that it's worth it, because I think maybe in our day and age, I'm not sure, maybe not, but there's an element where it's really easy, I think, in our day and age we just mock parents, right? We dismiss parents, and we don't have the same kind of respect that other cultures have had for their ancestors or for their parents, for their elders. And here in the book of Sirach, chapter 3, we get reminded of how important it is. In fact, the fourth commandment, to honor one's father and mother, is the only commandment that comes with a blessing, that long life may be yours. And here in chapter 3 of Sirach, we get reminded of that once again. So we're going to be journeying again for maybe the next 30 days or so, and Maccabees and Sirach and Wisdom in these books about the Maccabean revolt. And then we're going to launch into the New Testament. So this is the great beginning of our last little phase before we enter into the New Testament period and the last gospel, Luke's gospel, the one we haven't read yet, as well as Acts of the Apostles and all the letters of Paul and the others. But today, we're at day 282, and we're just beginning this new phase before our last phase. It's the penultimate time period before we get to the end. What a great blessing. We're not even close. Guys, oh my gosh, I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. My name is Father Mike. I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. God bless.